fans, welcome back everyone, welcome back. Hope you enjoyed that brutal OST as we have returned with our final series here of the broadcast. We just wrapped up with the KSL, that's true, we just crowned our champion, but we are here to discover some of these other matches that did occur during the broadcast. Again, we weren't able to cast them live because at the time of this series we were actually casting Dark versus Oliveira, and even Oliveira versus DRG before that. So we kind of had our own path to the finals. I believe this series was casted by Chicken Man and Enki over on their channel, and I want to know what happened. Want to know what did occur here as we're diving into Classic versus SHIN in a PvZ. Let's go. Game 1 is going to be on hard lead. So we are loading in. Again, some of those Protoss and Zerg players in the Korean region. And we're getting into our quarterfinals match. And spawning in the bottom right hand corner of hard lead, we have the South Korean Zerg player representing Mystery Gaming. It is SHIN. And spawning in the top left hand corner, we have as opponent, we have the South Korean Protoss representing Twisted Minds. It is Classic. For those that are curious, SHIN is maybe a player that you haven't heard of. SHIN? Who? What? Is there a new Korean player in the scene? No. SHIN is Ragnarok. Ragnarok did go for a ID change a couple of months ago, basically at the start of the WTL season, which I think was around September. Around September-ish is when SHIN, or Ragnarok, name changed to SHIN. And you may be wondering, why SHIN of all things? Ramen? SHIN is part of his IRL name. It is part of his IRL name, and I guess he's maybe wanting to rebrand a little bit and just be a little bit more, maybe even Korean friendly. I know that he does make he has a YouTube channel, he does stream, he does a lot of content for the Korean scene, and yeah, maybe just wants to identify more as himself and less so as Ragnarok. So yeah, a bit of a name change going on, and it does make sense. It's fine. Now known as SHIN. It's all good. I have a hard time because whenever I say SHIN, my brain thinks ramen. It just thinks of instant noodles, like instantly, which is not a bad thing. It just makes me hungry. I just want to eat some noodles. I have some noodles after this. For now though, we're getting into our openers. SHIN going for a hatch gas full standard opener from our Zerg player. Likewise, Classic going for a gate expand into the side door. Everything is looking normal. For now, things looking normal, but both players thrive in the mid game, so I'm ready for some action. I'm ready for some chaos here, especially on a map like hard lead. Talking about this map, I'm a little bit surprised we actually didn't get to cast on this map at all yet today. Our first time loading into hard lead in the entire broadcast, which is wild to me, unless I'm forgetting like a game or two. But yeah, this is a short rush distance by ground. I believe the shortest by ground in the entire map pool. So you can be very aggressive, very assertive. We've seen a lot of roach-based all-ins, a lot of like queen walks or German taxis, or you know, whatever variation of queen all-in you want to go for. We've seen a lot of that in the mid-game of PvZs. Likewise, we've seen a lot of ground-oriented aggression as well. Whether it's a Twilight Council opener or a Twilight Council follow-up, we've seen a lot of that here from the Protoss side of things as well. So we'll see if that's going to be the case here as, Classic being as annoying as possible, going for the pylon block. Trying to delay as much as he can, but he should be canceling this pylon and we should be expanding. The goal was for Classic to buy time for the Adept. The goal would have been for the Adept to rock up, to get the kill on the drone and delay the space even further, but barely it was dealt with and the Adept arrives a little bit too late. SHIN is able to establish himself here on his two bases. Behind this, it's a Stargate opener, yes, but we have a Void Ray first. The Void Ray is going to be shutting down these Overlords. Classic has been very fond of Tempest rushes, and he has been doing it at least once every best of series against the Zerg. Not saying that he's going to do it here, but it's in his wheelhouse. It is a big possibility to do at some point in this series. For now, Void Ray first. Void Ray going to be shutting down this Overlord, keeping his opponent in the dark. Behind this, Classic could just go into an Oracle and go into a third base, or you can go for hidden tech, whether it's a second Stargate or a Twilight Council or even a Robo with a Forge with a delayed Twilight Council, whatever it is, SHIN doesn't know, as the Overlord is going to be brought down. Behind this, SHIN just still establishing himself, droning on up, spreading his creep, getting up to 3 bases, And we have our follow-up. It is going to be the Oracle. So it looks like Classic is going to be expanding. He's going to take his third. Third base is going to be on the horizon. What is interesting here is... that is a Twilight Council. That is a Robo. We are delaying the Forge. Typically, the Twilight Council comes alongside the Forge to get into +1 and Blink at the same time. The fact that we have a delayed Forge, that does ring alarm bells. That is a little bit odd here, and something to take note of that what Classic is up to. And again, Shin is in the dark. We even we delayed the third base as well for the tech. This could be for Fast Immortals. This should be for aggression nonetheless. I'm curious what this is going to lead into. Third base now being taken, but the third is delayed. And I wonder if Shin is aware that something is wrong. Behind this, Lair is at a regular time here for Shin. He's saturating on 3 bases. Should be working on his 4th momentarily as well. Prism is on the way. We have a Gateway Explosion. Behind this, we are going into Archons. Okay. Curious. This should be Charged Archon. Yeah, there we go. Charged Archon on the way here for Classic. I believe this is designed to catch the Zerg player off guard and kind of surprise them with the eventual Archon drop. But yeah, a very interesting playstyle. Not of the norm. It's going to be 4 gates on the way. It's going to be 6 gateways in total. If we throw down any more gateways, then that will signify a much more committed push here from Classic. For now, Prism is going to be skirting the edge of the map. This Templar Archives is finishing up just in time, so this is going to be for an Archon drop. As we can warp in High Templar and morph in those Archons. Void Ray takes control of the Zelnaga. Behind this, Shin is working towards +1 range, so he's going for a Roach Ravager heavy composition. +1 range tells us that he isn't really looking to go into much Ling Bane for the time being. Instead of going into +2 range, he could go into +1 melee, which will show us that he's going into more like diverse style, but there it is. This makes a lot of sense. It's going to be Roaches into Hydras into Lurkers, as the range upgrade does lead into all 3 of those things, and the Hydra Den is on the way. But before we can talk about Hydras, here come the Archons. Archons as well as Zealots. Classic. I think he may just wait for a wave of reinforcements, and there it is. And again, Shin has no idea. Classic did a great job at just clearing the path. He killed the Ling at the Zelnaga first, and now he rocks up here, hitting a timing. Oh, charge is still 10 seconds away. We're a couple seconds too early. And Charge just now finishes, but we have a massive Roach army, and Classic is going to be pushed away. The Zealots do nothing. Shin was ready for it. And Shin can now even... he can't quite go for a counterattack. He's still waiting for Roach speed, but he's in a good position here. Going to be droning up, getting his 4th. Just to make sure he doesn't lose too much to these Archons. As they do get a couple of drones. Oh my god. 3 workers will go down. Behind this, we're building up the Immortal counts, getting into +1 and Blink. Classic just trying to stabilize here on 3 bases. But what I will say is that this timing, this charge timing from Classic, was the entire purpose of his opener, of his build, and it didn't do anything. It did not do enough damage. So now Shin is getting away with taking up into Hydras. Here we go. Shin is pushing. He also cut workers. He got a 4th only for lava. He is not droning at all. He's cutting workers here at 64. That is 3 base saturation. It's a 3 base all-in from Shin. This is what we spoke about at the start of the game. These 3 base all-ins, I related it more to queen pushes, but this is very similar. Very similar to a queen push. It's just a 3 base all-in at a Shin. Very common here on hard lead, and there's not enough here to defend. Stalkers are going down. The Archon! Good juggling here from Classic does keep it alive. But it's a numbers game here, and Shin, he's snowballing out of control. He shut down the charge push. GG gets called, and Shin will take game number 1. GG. A very unorthodox all-in out of Shin. Usually, when we cut workers on 3 base saturation, it's just Roach Ravager. Really interesting to see Shin incorporate Hydras. That's very odd. Not really seen too often. I think it was just because there was a Void Ray, so he wanted some anti-air, so went for a Roach Hydra timing. Again, he cut workers at 64, and Classic was in a rough position, especially after losing that first Zealot wave. Like, again, that push from Classic had to deal economic damage, or at least trade with all the queens. Like, it had to do something. Didn't do much at all. He killed 3 drones, 3 workers. That's it. Oh. Aye. And with that, Shin does take the first game. But now, we're getting into game number 2, which will be taking place on Alcyone. Let's go. So yeah, really interesting style there out of Classic. It was punished, unfortunately. It was shut down. I don't think Shin was, like, again, Shin didn't even scout it. He didn't even know what was coming. He just happened to be going for a 3-way soul-in anyway, so he was cutting workers and was already building up a roach count. He just so happened to run into Zealots. It's like, oh, I mean, I already have an army, so I'm gonna just clean this up, I guess. Shin wasn't necessarily preparing for the attack, he was preparing for his own attack. And here we go, we're getting into game number 2, and sporting in the top right hand corner of Alcyone, we have the South Korean Zerg player going for a 15-15. Interesting to whip that out on Alcyone. Representing Mystery Gaming, it is SHIN. And spawning in the bottom left hand corner, we have as opponent, we have the South Korean Protoss representing Twisted Minds, the red Protoss. It is Classic. So an interesting opener here from SHIN. With a 15-15, we do manage to get our base here on location. So the way this works is that it is a slightly faster hatchery, which means you throw it down just before the probe shows up, as we saw. This is an opener designed to get your natural base on location. Otherwise, Classic would have forced the unnatural natural, and these bases are pretty spread out. This map, Alcyone, is known for its macro play, that is true. But at the same time, like, again, because these bases are so spread out, you can abuse a player that is forced to expand elsewhere. So SHIN just going for a safer opener. Technically, this is inefficient. This is slightly inefficient, but you get your base up and running where you want it to be, so you're a little bit more comfortable, a little bit safer. Less economic, but more safe. As Classic is going for a gate expand into the Cyber Core. And does, of course, confirm the opener of his opponent. Now, what's important as well is that SHIN did go for a 15 hatch. He didn't go for a 15 pool. He went hatch gas pool. So he went for his own unique variation of 15 hatch. Usually you delay your gases and you get a faster spawning pool for faster queens. But SHIN actually prioritized getting his gas instead. So yeah, an interesting choice here from our Zerg player. With this, he's going to have faster link speed. I'm curious if he's going to skip link speed and go into roaches. That is also an option here. Very curious, but I imagine link speed should be on the horizon. Yeah, there we go. Link speed is on the way, and then we pull out of gas. Completely out of gas, even. So yeah, just really safe play here out of SHIN. Behind this, Stargate opener once again from Classic. I spoke earlier about like these like Tempest rushes that Classic has been fond of. And Alcyone is one of those maps that he does whip it out on, just because of how safe you are back at home on your 2 and even 3 bases. So you need very, very little to defend, and you can get away with rushing into Tempest. The last time we casted Classic versus Dark, I think it was, last week, he did whip that out as well. So I'm curious, as the unit is going to be rallied towards... Okay, never mind. It was rallied here towards the natural, but now it's rallied across the map, so... should be an Oracle. No, Void Ray. Okay. Show us what you got. Now, what I love here is that if you remember, last game Classic also went for a Void Ray opener. So the idea of opening up the same, but having a different transition, I love that. Just because, again, SHIN, he's going to be thinking most likely about that previous Archon push and the charge timing and all that stuff. Won't really know what comes next. Could be anything. Could be the same thing or could be something different. Void Ray is on the way. There it is. Rally towards the Overlord. Gonna be shutting it down. We have an Oracle behind this. And what kind of tech are we going to be going for? Looks like for now it's going to be Stargate into third base. Much more economic compared to last game. Remember, last game we threw down a Twilight Council and a Robo before that third. As Lings have arrived. Adept's not quite in position. They do manage to rock up, do forces back, and there's that third on the way. So this time, much more economic here from Classic. Not as committed to the charge, or not as committed to aggression. And there it is! There's the Fleet Beacon. We are rushing into Tempest. We saw this last weekend. So, I mean, we've seen Classic do this a lot. I mentioned that in Game 1, how he loves to whip this out at some point in a best-of series against Zerg. Whether it's a best-of 3 or best-of 5, he does this at least once, typically. So we're going to be racing into Tempest. Oracle has arrived. Oh! Oof. Doesn't quite get too much though, just to say strap on one drone. Now, the way this works is we're rushing into typically 4 Tempests. So if you remember, this is usually 4 Tempests, then you go into Blink Stalkers. I say typically because we did cast Classic during GSL. Ooh, okay. We have a layer on time, Roach one as well. We did cast Classic during GSL, and Classic had a unique variation, and he's going for something else. Oracle is going to be forced back. During GSL, Classic went up to 6 Tempests, and even though he got a 3rd base, he didn't saturate it. He went for a 2 base all-in and canceled the 3rd. Here, he is not Tempest rushing. He's going into Carriers instead. Okay. Carriers, that's a Forge as well. Oh, we are. Yeah. It's a Forge and Twilight Council. Okay. So, similar concept. We have seen Classic go into 4 Tempests and then go into Ground Toss. This looks like Carriers into Ground Toss as well. Forge is for +1. Twilight Council should be for Blink. This should be a transition into Blink Stalkers. The question becomes, how many carriers do we make? 2, 4, or 6? 6 carriers is like critical mass. Like, that's kind of like the ideal, but because we're going to be going into Ground Toss behind this, there's +1 attack on the way, and this should be Blink. We shouldn't make too many carriers. Ooh, meanwhile, we're responding with Aspire. Okay. There is that Blink on the way. And I was assuming that we would go up to 4 carriers. But we're cutting at 2. Much early on. The reason why we're cutting at 2 is because we're going straight into a Templar Archives. We're taking up into a Templar Archives, not just Blink Stalkers. If this was just Blink Stalkers, we could afford to make more carriers, but we're going into Archons. Blink and Archons. Meanwhile, the Spire has not been scouted. Carriers are moving out. The Spire, I imagine, was going to be for Mutas, by the way, for Shin. Blinks have arrived. We're going to be able to clean them up. And the carriers now reveal themselves. Shin, how many queens do we have? 7 queens. Spores are just now being thrown down. Shin caught completely off guard. But it's only 2 carriers. Like, I don't really know how much we can really accomplish here. I mean, the main is looking more vulnerable. We can go for the queens. The Spire gets scouted. Oh my god. Spire has been spotted. We do focus down 2 workers before getting the hell out of there. Shin getting ready for his own Roach counterattack. But yeah, we're going straight to Storm, Immortal production. We have 8 Corruptors on the way. And I worry, if we invest too hard into Corruptors, I mean, that's what Classic wants. Classic, he wants the Zerg player to overcommit into Corruptor production. We're even investing into upgrades, +1 air attack. Sorry, +1 air defense. And Classic, he's just doubling down on Blink Stalkers and Storm and Immortals and everything around us. And what's scary is that Shin doesn't know. If he scouts this, then he can prepare, but he's still in the dark. Oh, there we go. He sees High Templar, he sees Stalkers. He sees the Immortal and the lack of carriers. Shin did make an extra wave of Corruptors, unfortunately. And he will get on top of one of these carriers and should get the other as well. Meanwhile, Storm going to be zoning away the ground army, gets both carriers in the end, and we still have more Corruptors? More Corruptors are in production. Some of them did get cancelled. Not all of them, though. That is worrisome. That is dead supply in a way. I say in a way because Corruptors can still try to caustic spray down some buildings. But what they can add to the game here is very limited. We're up to 8 Corruptors. And we're going for the natural. Stalkers are in position. We have a shield battery. We have an overcharge. Oof. Army is forced back. At the same time, Shin going to be threading that forth, but the storms are here. Good dodges on the piles. Solid dodges here from Classic. Void Ray is going to get picked off by those Corruptors at least. We do gain some value. Stalkers are going down. Where's the overcharge? We do have the overcharge, but maybe 1 second too late. Immortal goes down as well. And the overcharge is going to get biled. Shin, he is gaining ground. But the Stalker count is getting higher and higher. The Biles, they do not connect. We dive on top of the army. Bold move here from Classic, but he smells blood in the water. Yeah, he's chasing down these Ravagers one after the other. Oh, Biles will connect. But SHIN, he's lost his momentum. He's being chased down. The target firing, the focus fire. We lose another 2 Ravagers. Cross map. Corruptors trying to find some damage, but they don't find anything. Yeah, they're getting picked off. If the Corruptor count gets reset, we could go back into carriers. Bear that in mind as well. That is possible. But I don't think we need to. The downside here, as Classic has been building up his ground army, is that SHIN is woefully underprepared. No Lurkers, no Hydroden. He's going into Lingbane Roach Ravager, which is okay, but Baneling Speed is still in production. Again, this is a late reaction and a late transition into a more robust ground army. Right now, we're only defending with Roach Ravager, and that is a little bit scary. Scary for SHIN. He needs a little bit more time. He needs time to get into those Banelings. Meanwhile, Classic, he's ahead in workers. He's ahead in economy. He's up to 84 probes. Getting his 5th base up and running. Getting a 6th base as oh my god. And SHIN just can't do much about it. Not yet. He's maxing. Now, Lingbane Roach Ravager, its strength here is in its mobility. Its ability to surround. Its ability to come in from behind and get on top of those High Templar. If we attack from one angle, Storms are just going to have their way with this army. And there are the Storms! They connect with the Lingbane. Massive Storms here on the army. Lingbane is running out. We do take down the High Templar. And it looks like SHIN can barely force this back, but he runs out of Lingbane. We still have more Banelings behind this. Is it enough? It looks like it is. Force back the army. Biles! They take down the Prism. Just barely. Ooh. And that was a pretty good fight for SHIN. He reset the Colossus. Sorry, he reset the Immortals. He also reset the High Templar as well. He has momentum. He can keep pushing. I think he needs to as well. I think he needs to deny this gold. Like SHIN, he's up in supply. We gotta go. But we have plenty of Stalker reinforcements. As the army gets distracted, SHIN, he does dive on this base. Yeah, forces a cancel. Very necessary there from SHIN. But has he seen bottom? He does now see bottom right. Not saturated yet, but we're getting there. There it is. Caustic Spray on the Nexus. Files are going to be connecting. Ooh, can we focus down the base? I think we can. Lingbane zones back the army, and the Ravagers, they dive on top of the Nexus, and that's going to be a kill on the 6th. Sorry, the 5th. This was the 6th base. There we go. It's going to be a kill on the 5th. Keeping Classic contained to 4 bases. But, as we mentioned before, because the Corruptor count has been thinned out, back into carriers. Carriers, they have arrived. SHIN, oh, this is a late hive. We're now working on it. SHIN has a decent economy, has his own goal base up and running. Is remaxing, but so is Classic. And here are the Storms. Once again, massive Storms here on the Lingbane. Army trying to come in from behind. Biles, they connect with the carriers. But this time the High Templar survive. And we have 1 Storm left. It will connect. A good trade here from Classic. Keeping 2 High Templar alive. Morphing in an Archon. The carriers survive as well. And we can push. Corruptors are going to be focused down. We need more anti-air. We need those Corruptors. So we are getting back into them. And what's important here is that SHIN was forced back. Not just that, but Classic is double expanding. And he's getting away with it. He's getting away with this goal base. SHIN needs to stop it. And here we go. He's going for a big link counterattack. Does this time take down the 6th base. The goal being the 5th now. Does force a cancel. But the gold is getting up. And now we have cannons, shield batteries on the way. This base is becoming more and more fortified. And as it's getting fortified, I feel like SHIN has to recognize that we're getting into a longer game. And we need to expand. We need to like mass expand here on the top left. Take all these hatcheries. All these bases. Without them, I mean, SHIN does have a bank to work with, but again, this game may go on for quite some time. I think they go in for a big run by, but alas, they don't find anything. They force back the army. The Hive just finished up. We have an Ultra Cav and Greater Spire on the way. Still no Adrenal Glands. We are lacking that. But what I will say is that at the moment, Shin's army is being outscaled. Lingbane Roach Ravager is a really good mid-game composition, but as the High Templar count, the Carrier count, the Immortal count all gets higher, we do need to get rid of the Roach Ravager specifically. Oh, can we save it? We can! The base is saved. And here we go. We're collapsing in this position once again, trying to get on top of this High Templar. High Templar are going down. Decent storms, though. The Stalker army is crumbling. And we're getting on top of the carriers. One carrier goes down. A second carrier as well. We're going for the kill. We're going for it. Do we have enough? We should. As we get on top of the third carrier as well. Barely bringing it down, but we don't have enough to keep pushing. Classic holds. He does hold on just barely. But he's down to one carrier. That was a good fight. That was a good trade here for Shin. And if you notice here, he's not replacing his Roach Ravager. He's doubling down on Lingbane, making room for more Corruptors. And again, he did need to trade out that Roach Ravager for a more efficient army. And now he's taking more bases. As he gets rid of the Roach Ravager, we have Ultras on the way. The role of the Ultra is once again to get on top of the High Templar, to force out the storms, and once the storms get cleaned up, then the Corruptors can dive on top of the carriers. That's the role of the Ultra. And Classic just doubling down here on Skytoss. Still only on 2 Stargates, which is impacting his overall Skytoss production. Oh, sorry, he's got a third. Hey, we're good. He's on 3 Stargates. Can produce 3 carriers at a time. If he had the economy for it, he's still building himself back up. Now, the question for Classic here, he can still stay on these 6 bases. Doesn't have to worry about the 7th base yet. But once he does, he can either expand forward here towards his opponent or backwards. And there it is. 7th Nexus is on the way. Now, what's scary is that Classic is up a base. As Classic is getting a 7th, Shin is getting a 6th, which is crazy. And here we go. Ultras are pushing on forward, trying to crash into this Nexus. Big storms. Not quite connecting on the Banelings, though. Only on the Ultras. He's rolling in from the left-hand side to the left-hand side. Stalkers being warped in as well. Big storms on the Corruptors this time. But once again, we're diving on top of the carriers. There's only 3 of them. The carriers are going to go down. But what about the Stalkers on the ground? The ground army. The Stalkers, they are going to clean this up. They reign supreme. They take down the Roach Ravager. They take down the Ultras. And Shin loses everything. 1 carrier survives, and the Stalkers make it out as well. Ay. Initially, it was looking okay. For Shin, but committing up the ramp into the gold base, that was an overextension. He does deny a base here on the left, but remember, Shin is even on bases, which is never a good thing for the Zerg. Doesn't just have to deny a base, he needs to take another base or even deny the 6th here of Classic, and he's been trying. The Corruptor count was reset, we're getting back into more carriers. High Templar were left over. Shin, what are our upgrades looking like? 1-1. Shin, he's still only on 1-1 upgrades. A big reason for this as well is the lower economy of Shin. Like, we were speaking about his low base count, true, but he's also oversaturated. And he's under-droned. Which is also why Shin just burned through his bank and he doesn't really have a lot to work with. He's still struggling to remax. He's still struggling. Now, this game has been still very chaotic. Like, Classic, even though he's been winning some of these fights, he doesn't have the best army at the moment. He still needs, Archons, additional High Templar for more storms. Void Rays would be nice to support his carriers. This entire time, he's been trying to get up to 6 carriers, and he's been struggling. But now we're working on our 7th, soon to be our 8th carrier. Jesus. The carrier count getting far higher than ever before in this game. And Classic, instead of expanding on the left-hand side, he is expanding towards his opponent. Oof, this is brutal. If he gets this base up and running, this is going to be a staging ground here, a launch pad to push towards the bases of SHIN. SHIN cannot allow this, but he may have to. Corruptors from behind. Storms on the Ling Bane. Storms on the Corruptors as well. As we do get into some of these High Templar, we clean up the ground army. Oh my god, the Ultra's going ham. And Classic, has he overextended? Does he have enough carriers? They're trying to be focused out, but it looks like there just aren't enough Corruptors in the air. It looks like the carriers should barely clean this up. At the same time, though, the Banelings, they get into the mineral line. The Ultras are breaking in. The Ultras are barely breaking through, but the carriers did reign supreme, and they turn back around, and they're going to clean this up. At the same time, as Zealot Runby was trying to distract those reinforcements, the Nexus will go down. This is a good moment for SHIN, kind of. He did deny the 7th base, and he did kill the 6th, but he lost so much. That was an expensive trade for SHIN, and we spoke about his low worker count earlier, his low economy earlier, and SHIN doesn't have a bank. He can't remax. Classic is remaxing. He's rebuilding. He kept most of his carriers, well, I say most, 3 carriers alive, making 3 at a time, and he's double expanding. Classic is gonna bounce back first. And SHIN, he just doesn't have the economy, doesn't have the gas count. He didn't take these gases here. Just now taking them, just now expanding towards the left-hand side. Again, there was nothing stopping SHIN from expanding and taking the space much earlier, especially with the Rich Resting Gas Geyser. There was a lot of value here, and SHIN just wasn't thinking that far ahead. I'm pretty sure he was assuming he could maybe kill his opponent earlier, which is why he was so aggressive, but yeah, he's being punished for it. Being punished for not expanding, for not taking advantage of the economy earlier. Ooh, that's a kill. That's a kill, not a cancel. Not bad. Not a bad moment there for SHIN. He's going to be able to get on top of some of these workers as well. Oh, at the same time, though, the bases are being denied. And SHIN, he rotates over with all of his lings, most of his lings even. Is that good? So we do force a cancel. That was so close. That was almost a kill. Again, the upgrades, I say the upgrades. A lot of what's hurting SHIN right now is because of his worse economy. Like, he doesn't have the money to afford upgrades right now. He can't even remax. He has just been one step behind for quite some time now. Classic. He is looking to snowball out of control. Another Zealot Runby denying the base once again. Moving towards the mineral line. Lings, they're on the way. Save the drones. We even recall. Oh my god. Classic being very careful here with how he uses his Zealots. I mean, he doesn't really have a bank to work with, so he's preserving as many of his units as he can. Corruptors trying to come in once again, but they do get seen. They get spotted. They do get zoned away. Ultras pushing on forward. We're getting some of the High Templar. The High Templar are exposed. The Corruptors, they dive on the army. Big storms once again, and the Corruptors are going to go down. There just aren't enough of them. There's too many carriers. Too much Sky Toss. GG gets called. And Classic will take game number 2, tying up the series 1-1. GG. Let's go. GG, well played. With Classic playing in a very unique style. I'm very used to seeing Classic rush into Tempest, so very refreshing to see him rush into carriers instead, but the same kind of outcome, the same game plan, where with this build that Classic has been very fond of, whether it's Tempest or carriers, the goal is to switch into ground toss. The goal is to force an overreaction early on, which he did achieve. He forced out an extra wave of Corruptors that weren't really necessary, and that was a lot of dead supply, but things didn't really go the way that Classic was hoping. It was quite back and forth, and Ragnarok was able to win a couple of fights, was able to gain map control. I do think that a lot of this game, a lot of the onus does fall on SHIN, does fall on our Zerg player, just because for a long time, it did feel like he did have a lot of freedom to expand and take some of these bases on the left-hand side, and he chose not to. I would kind of paint it as he kind of chose not to, because he wanted to end the game earlier. He wanted to try to break Classic earlier, and he almost did at times, but because he wasn't killing Classic, because he wasn't able to clean up the army the way that he was hoping, Shin was in a way all in. He was kind of like pseudo all in, because he didn't have the economy to sustain himself going into a longer game. And Shin took advantage of him. And now we're getting into the ace match. We're getting into game number 3. It all ends on Site Delta. Let's go. Here we go. Personally, though, I love that we're, again, getting all 3 games. We're getting to the ace match. That's all I want. That's all I ever want. And here we go, spawning in the top left-hand corner of Site Delta, we have the South Korean Zerg player representing Mystery Gaming. It is Shin. Being forced into the ace match. And spawning in the bottom right-hand corner, we have his opponent. We have forcing the ace match, our South Korean Protoss player representing Twisted Minds. It is Classic. Here we go. Now, that fast fleet beacon and the fast carriers, or again, if you wanted to go Tempest, the fast Tempest, isn't really going to be. I don't think we're going to be whipping it out here. That's typically something that you reserve to do once in a series, maybe twice in a best of 5. But you do it once in a best of 3, not something you want to rely upon. So I'm sure Classic is going to be bringing something different to the table. I would imagine. So probe is going to just be as annoying as possible, tasing away at those drones, eventually being forced out. It is going to be a hatch gas pool opener here from Shin. Again, the rush distance by ground is a little bit longer on Site Delta. Didn't feel the need to go for a 15 hatch or anything like that. Able to take as natural on location. And we're just going to be easing our way here into this game. There's, again, no early gas, no early spawning pool, no 2-gate opener, for example. Everything looking normal. And everything should look normal on Site Delta. This is one of the few maps in the map pool that has a ramp leading into the natural, so because of that you have like an extra defensive bonus here with the high ground. So aggression early on is typically ill-advised on Site Delta. It's a little bit more difficult to pull it off compared to some of these other maps. So again, we're just kind of easing into this. Second pylon is thrown down here on the edge of the base. This looks like a pylon for a Stargate. So looking to be a Stargate opener here. Once again from Classic, he's been going for Stargates every game so far in this series. But it's about what happens after the Stargate. That's what we're really concerned about. Well, that's what I'm interested in. Stargate is on the way. Now we've seen Stargate into a delayed forge into Charger Archon. If you remember, that was game 1, Charger Archon out of Classic. Game 2 was the Fleet Beacon into second Stargate. Game 3, what are we feeling? What are we feeling? Also, every game so far, Classic has been going Void Ray first. I would love to see another Void Ray first opener again from Classic, even if he goes for a fast third, even if he goes into an economic standard build. A faster Void Ray is just going to keep Shin in the dark and keep him guessing once again as to what's going on, because he's going to be thinking, is it carriers again? Is it Charger Archon again? Like, Classic has been so wild this series, and it's going to keep him guessing. And there it is, Void Ray for a third time. I love it. Again, even if Classic is going to play standard, it's just a really good way to kind of play on the mind of Shin. The mind games, Papi, the mind games. As the Adept is going to be threatening a Shade. Just gets a scout off. He confirms the lack of fast Lair, which is really important, so no Nidus all in, no fast like Spire or fast all in general or aggression, no additional gases. Classic just confirming that everything is as it should be. Void Ray does reveal itself. And we have our follow-up. That is going to be a Twilight Council before the third base. Oh my. Okay, this looks like Glaive Adepts. I could be getting ahead of... Oh, so we did have a pause during this series. Looks like we had some issues, but everything got cleared up. But this screams Glaive Adepts. Now, we have seen Hero go for a Twilight Council follow-up into a 2-base Blink Stalker all-in. Hero did do that, I want to say 2 weeks ago in KSL. 2 or 3 weeks ago. But outside of Hero, yeah, there we go. Glaives is the more standard thing. Like Hero, he's the only person that I've seen go Blink. He's crazy like that. Now, the reason why I assumed that this would be Glaives is because there's no Forge. No Forge, which means no upgrades. Also, because of the delayed third base as well. Everything's screamed Glaives. Oracle's on the way. Oh! Stasis Trap! Oh, he's going to catch a couple of drones. Only 2, though. Could have been so much worse. But what's scary here is that Shin is in the dark. He does see the third. He's going to try to get a scout, but the Ling is going to be denied. And so far, this opener from Classic looks just like every other game. That's what's also scary about how Classic has been playing this series. Every game has been going for... I mean, except for last game, to be fair. But last game, he didn't go for a delayed third base. But game 1, he went for a delayed third, went into a faster Twilight Council, went to charge. Every game has been going for Void Ray openers, so Shin, like, there's nothing here that really screams anything different. Like, he doesn't know what's happening. And what's scary, I don't see a Roach Warren. We're taking all these gases. Are we going into a Spire? This is looking like either a fast Spire or fast Hydras. We're taking all 6 gases. We're rushing into a Spire. No Baneling Nest, no Roach Warren. Ling Queen to defend. Shin, there's no pants. He never had pants on to begin with. Like, he's being caught completely exposed. Now a Roach Warren gets thrown down as the Adepts are revealed. Ay, ay, ay. Shin was being too greedy. Hydroden is on the way as well. And these Adepts, they may just end the game. Queens are falling left and right. Shin cutting so many corners, being so greedy. I do think he did initially want to go into Mutas. And there's just nothing. There's nothing to deal with this. Queens are falling left and right. Drones are now falling down as well. There are no Lings to defend. 18 more Lings in production against Glaive Adepts. What are they going to do? What can they do? And again, Shin, he just had no idea what was coming his way. He had no way of trying to read what was happening. He could have played it out safely. Could have gotten a safety Roach Warren. He skipped it. And that is 14 dead drones and counting. As we catch even more drones here in the main. Ay, ay, ay. 24. And we're not done. We have Adepts in every single mineral line. The Hydras have been spotted. GG gets called. We're not going to be able to make use of it. And Classic will take the series 2-1 and advance on to the semifinals, as we saw previously. GG, well played. Classic with a very unique style every game. That's what I love here. Out of Classic isn't the only one. Hero as well. Classic and Hero, they're both very aggressive players. They're both very similar in their like mindset and play style. Maybe play style isn't the best way to put it, but in their mindset, they're always keeping their opponent guessing. And every game here this series, Classic went for a Void Ray first, shutting down those Overlords, and going for a different transition, right? Whether it was Charge Archon or Carrier Rush or here, Glaive Adepts, you know, always keeping his opponent guessing. And Shin being a little bit too greedy cutting corners, right? Like, if you're up against a player as unpredictable as Classic, you're gonna skip your Roach Warren? You're crazy. you're crazy, Papi. Just choosing to skip his Roach Warren and skip a Bane, like, go for one or the other. But to just drone up to 3-base saturation to take all 6 gases before any kind of tech, that's wild. And to be fair, if Classic was going into a Carrier Rush, for example, there were Queens to defend. We had a lot of Queens. So if this was the same build as we had previously, like going into either a Tempest Rush or a Carrier Rush, then Shin would have been okay. And I want to believe that's what Shin thought was happening. I think Shin assumed that it was going to be Sky Toss again, and that's why he felt like he could get away with skipping the Roach Warren and the Baneling Nest. So he took a bit of a risk, a bit of a chance, and he got caught out. Got caught out with his pants down. GG. Wild. Pants? Joke's on you. What pants? Exactly. They weren't just down. They never existed. And yeah, with that, GG, well played. Alcyon's rush distance is 1 second longer. There you go, 1 second longer. I know they're both long, but now we have confirmation. Oh. Regardless, GG, well played. Classic will take it in the end. We'll advance on into the semis, and we already covered the semis again. We already finished wrapping up KSL. This was just a replay cast to see what happened in Classic versus SHIN. And if you maybe missed out on the finals, or maybe missed out on the lower semifinals of Dark versus Oliveira or Hero versus Oliveira, I recommend checking it out. Really good games, really solid performances. Check out the VODs if you're interested. Otherwise, thank you so much. Thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you so much for checking out the CranKy Ducklings, and I hope you all enjoyed yourselves. !KSL in the chat, and you can get a link to the Patreon. Get a link to the Patreon page where you can support this tournament if you wish. Otherwise, we're done for now. We're done for this afternoon. There's no WTL this week. WTL has been postponed. No World Team League. It's next week instead because of Home Story Cup. Home Story Cup is this weekend. Day 1 was last night. Day 2 is in a couple of hours. So if you want some more StarCraft action, Home Story Cup is the place to be. I believe they're still working through the group stage. And Home Story Cup is in 5 hours. 5 hours time. Get that Home Story Cup inside you, Papi. Some really good matches going on there and really good performances. Meanwhile, Home Story Cup is in 5 hours. In 8 hours time, a little bit after, 3 hours after the start of Home Story Cup, we are going to be live on this channel. Not with Home Story Cup, unfortunately, but we're going to be live with the Hatchery Cup. So unfortunately, we're going to be overlapping with Home Story Cup, but we have our own broadcast going on. So if you're interested, if you want to open up a couple of tabs, if you want to watch everything at once, you can. And we're going to be live in 8 hours time with our own tournament. I say our own tournament. We're going to be providing English coverage for the Hatchery Cup, which is an open tournament, and plenty of amazing players are going to be a part of that as well. It's going to be a European-based tournament. Basically, a lot of the players that aren't involved in Home Story Cup are going to be in Hatchery Cup. So there you go. There you go. So yeah, look forward to that later on tonight. Otherwise, thank you. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for supporting us. And yeah, we're going to be back in 8 hours. Otherwise, we're going to be back tomorrow with the Tenacious Turtle Tussle. Plenty of StarCraft going on here on the CranKy Ducklings. We're live every single day, all the time. It's time for you to stream ladder. No, I need to get some breakfast. It's almost 6 p.m. I need some breakfast, Papi. I need to get some food. If you want to watch us elsewhere, if you can't tune in live, !YouTube. We have a YouTube channel, and we do upload on YouTube on a daily basis. Plenty of VODs on YouTube. Thousands of VODs on YouTube, with plenty of StarCraft as well. So yeah, check out our YouTube. I know watching YouTube VODs isn't for everyone. I know that a lot of people like to watch live, but if you happen to enjoy watching YouTube content when it comes to StarCraft, we got you covered over on YouTube. So yeah, we got you covered there. Otherwise, we'll see you guys in 8 hours for the Hatchery Cup. Until then, stick around. We're going to be giving another StarCraft streamer a raid. Not too sure who, but we'll find someone to raid. So give them a chance, give them an opportunity, and we'll see you guys next time. Until then, hasta luego. Bye. Bye. Thanks for watching. Bye, everyone.